Kakadosh Boker Or, I wanted to share with you a beautiful idea on this week's Parasha. We know that the month of Elul is the last month of the year to do that. We're going to start a new year, even though usually we count the months from Nisan Iyar, from Nisan. But to do with the new year, what we counted, the 5784, 5785, we're going to turn that we always start from, obviously, Tishri. And this month is the month of Teshuva, just like we already hinted out and we already spoke about it, that we spoke about the Yefat Toar, that she came and she's going to cry for her parents on Yerach Yamim, and we explained that Yerach Yamim was actually referring to the month of Elul. So now we come and we say, and also on Rosh Chodesh Elul, we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu to come up to the mountain. He was there for the 40 days from Rosh Chodesh Elul until Kippur, and on Kippur he came and he said, Salachti kivarecha, I forgive you, and that's why it became a day of atonement until today. And every single day they were coming and we're going to blow the shofar in the month of Elul in order to do Teshuvah. This week's parasha is going to be Parashat Nitzavim, but sometimes it's Nitzavim Vayelech, like in this year. So when we're going to come and speak about when is it exactly, so it all depends when does Rosh Hashanah fall out. If Rosh Hashanah is going to come out on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, it comes out, right, on a Monday, B'yamim Sheni or Shlishi, on Monday and Tuesday, it's going to be by itself. But if it's going to come out, right, on the other days, which we're going to see in 1 second, then it's going to be a double. So here, I wanted to bring to you a Balaturim on the Torah. The Balaturim, and it's also brought down in Shulchan Aruch, the Balaturim says, Bag Hamelech Pat Hamelech. What does that mean? The Budaham comes and he says, if the Melech, who's the Melech? Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, we mentioned the kingdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If Rosh Hashanah is going to come out on Bag, which is Monday and Tuesday, so then you have to do Pat. What does that mean? He comes and he says, Tafrid Vayelech. Because it says, Patototah Pitim. And therefore, so when it's going to come on Monday and Tuesday, this is the way that you're going to do it. If it's going to come on any other day, it's going to be different. So if you actually look inside of it, right, the reason why is because if it's going to come out Rosh Hashanah on the Monday and Tuesday, you're going to have 2 Shabbatot between Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot. So since you're going to have 2 different of the Shabbatot, right, so therefore what's going to happen is you're going to have, meaning even before Sukkot, so therefore you're going to have the 2 different, so you have to split up Nitzavim Vayelech. So Nitzavim is always going to be before Rosh Hashanah. And since there's 2 Shabbatot between Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot, because if, let's say Rosh Hashanah comes out on Monday, so that Shabbat is going to be Vayelech. And then you have Kippur, right? And then you're going to have Shabbat, and then you're going to have Sukkot. So the Shabbat before Sukkot is Hazinu. Because remember, on Sukkot, it's nothing because it's until Vizot HaBracha. So whenever you have 2 Shabbatot in between, it always has to be Vayelech and Hazinu. If there's only 1 Shabbat in between, right? So therefore, what are you going to have? For example, this year, right? This year, you only have 1 Shabbat between. You have the Shabbat. We're going to read the Shabbat, Nitzavim Vayelech. Yeah? Next Shabbat, right? We have Rosh Hashanah. Okay? Then you're going to have Hazinu, right? And then the next Shabbat is Kippur. So there's no Parasha. So therefore, there's only going to be 1 Shabbat. Because the Shabbat of Kippur, you don't read the Parasha. You only read the Parasha of Kippur. So that's just the way that it is. But we do know that you will always read Parashat Nitzavim before Rosh Hashanah. There's many different reasons. One reason brought down is because it speaks about Teshuvah. Meaning, since Parashat Nitzavim has the mitzvah of Teshuvah, right? Lo b'shamayim, right? We're going to say, what does that mean? It's not in Shamayim. So therefore, since we're talking about Teshuvah, we always wanted Nitzavim before Rosh Hashanah. So if Nitzavim is before Rosh Hashanah, so now you only have, right, Vayelech or whatever it is, and Hazinu. So it all depends. If there's 2 Shabbatot, you have to split up Nitzavim and Vayelech. It's Vayelech and Hazinu. And if it's 1 Shabbat, you're only going to do 1. There's another reason though also brought down why Nitzavim is always going to be before Rosh Hashanah. Because you want Tichle Shana v'kilulotea. Parashat Kitavo, last week's Parasha, had all the curses. You don't want to go from the curses to a Rosh Hashanah. So you always want to make sure that we're going to have Parashat Nitzavim before the Rosh Hashanah. So that way, you want it to finish the curses. So therefore, you don't want to start that immediately write the curses right away, the Rosh Hashanah. No. You have the curses, a Shabbat, which is Nitzavim, and then you're going to have Rosh Hashanah. Okay, fine. So obviously the kavanah is the mitzvah doraita that we spoke about of the mitzvah of Teshuva, that according to a lot of the opinions, it's a mitzvah from the Torah to do Teshuva, and they learned from this week's parasha, because we went and we said, you're going to return to Hashem your God. This command, mitzvah and commanding you is not difficult for you, it's not very far away, and this is talking about the mitzvah of Teshuva. Okay, fine. Now he says, right, how many parashiot are there in the Torah? So if you actually pay attention, starting from Bereshit, Noach, Lechacha, Vayelech, Yisara, Toldot, right, you continue going, yeah? All the parashiot. So there's going to be 53, which that's the numerical value of Kiminyan Gan, just like it says, Gan hu Kalil Tlat Vechamesh Sidin Doraita Divektav, which means that there's 53. Now, the truth is, right, when we're talking about the 53, it's not really 53. Because if we actually pay attention, it's really 54. So I actually did it, by the way. Open up one of the Chumashim that at the beginning it tells you, like the Bereshit, no, all of Bereshit, all of Shemot, all of Vayikra, Bamidbar Dvarim, 54. So, 1 second, if it's 54, it's not 53. So how does it make sense? So the answer is something very interesting. This brought down in the Rav Chida, the Gaon Mivilna, and other places as well, is that Nitzavim Vayelech, right, Vayelech, really be'emet, is one parasha. Nitzavim Vayelech, really be'emet, is one parasha. The only thing is, it's only split up, right, only when it's needed, that you're going to have an extra Shabbat. But really be'emet, it's one parasha. So be'emet, it really is 53 Pesukim. Okay? What is the semach, what is the smach ledavar? He says, do you know that there's going to be certain different types of parashiot? And it says, parashiot, right, nifradot, midchavro be'et hatzorech. Then he says, parashat nitzavim, that whenever you need to, you split it up into two. Meaning you see that Sadia Gaon actually wrote down ki'ilu, that really be'emet, nitzavim vayelech be'emet was one parasha. And then they came in. Now, how do you see, how else do you know that? Do you know at the end of a lot of the parashiot, whenever you open up the parasha, like the Chumash, at the end, it gives you a siman, how many pesukim. Yeah? Meaning, you're going to come, you're going to take a Chumash. Yeah? So at the end of every single parasha, yeah, whichever one it is. So for example, you just finished Vaychi. So it's going to tell you, Pe Hei Pesukim, 85 Pesukim, Pe El Pe Siman. Mouth to mouth is a siman. And you continue going. Every parasha, you have a siman. So do you know that at the end of Nitzavim, now we have a siman. In the olden days, when you looked at the end of Nitzavim, there was no siman. There was nothing written there. Now it tells you that there's 40 Pesukim at the end of Nitzavim, and the siman is levavo, and at the end of Vayeilech is going to be Ain, right, which is going to be 70 Pesukim, right? Pesukim Adanea, right? So what's going on? So do you know that it says that really be'emet, right, it was never written anything. He says at the end of Parashat Vayelech it was written the two parashiot together, which is Adaneha, right? Meaning, nowadays, if you go at the end of Vayelech, it says there's 70 Pesukim, right? There's not 70 Pesukim. Yeah, there's not 70 Pesukim in the entire thing. It starts from Pasuk Aleph, and it goes to Pasuk Lamed, which means that there's only 30 Pesukim in Vayelech. One more time. I want you to try this at home, Mauricio. Take a Chumash, take Vayelech, Parashat Vayelech. It's starting on chapter 31, right, which is Perek Lamed Aleph, starting Pasuk Aleph. And it continues until Pasuk Lamed, which is 30 Pesukim. 30 Pesukim is the amount in Vayelech. How many are in Nitzavim? Nitzavim, there's 40 Pesukim. 40 and 30 is 70. Here, at the end of Nitzavim, sorry, it tells you there's 40 Pesukim, but all of a sudden, at the end of Vayelech, it tells you there's 70 Pesukim. Why does it do that? There's not 70, it's 30. But 40 and 30 is 70. Meaning that the Siman which was written after Vayelech was because it was always one parasha. Nitzavim Vayelech was one parasha. It was not a separate parasha. It was one entity. And that's why it tells you the Pesukim only after Vayelech of the exact number. That's the way that it tells you. So what does that teach you? It's one parasha, right? So that means Vezot Bracha, which is going to be written on Simchat Torah, is, again, it's not actually on a Shabbat. So it's not even part of the parashiot. So according to that then, right, when we're going to come and we're going to speak about, right, the entire concept, right, of this, right, he comes and he says, that's going to be another answer that why is it 53 instead of 54. But it comes out then that 1 second. What is Nitzavim then? Which number of parasha? If you say that there's only 53, okay, so Vizot Bracha is number 53, Hazinu is 52, and Nitzavim Vayeilech is 51. You with me or not? One more time. Vizot Bracha is the last one, and we just explained that really Be'emet is 53 parashiot in the Torah. So 53, Vizot Bracha is the last one. Second last one is Hazinu, and the 51 is going to be Nitzavim Vayelech. Why? Because they're together. Again, remember, Nitzavim Vayelech are one parasha, one entity. Okay, 51. Do we see a similarity in the number 51? Think about it. Do we see anything that we also have in 51? So the chapter of Tehillim of Teshuva is chapter 51. Why? What is the chapter of Tehillim of, in the Sefer Tehillim, right, we say something very interesting. Listen to this. It says over there, do you know that we come and we say, correct or not? We say that pasuk at the end of Amidah. Okay, fine. Says the Gemara, what is the reason why we say Yu L'Ratzon? My ta'amad is the Gemara Mesechah Brachot of Tetam Ubet. What is the reason why we say Yu L'Ratzon Mifi L'Fanecha? Why do we say it after Amidah? Amar Rav Yehuda bered Rav Shimon Pazi Hoil V'lo Amro David L'Achad Yudche Parashiot. It's after 18 prakim of Tehillim. Meaning, after 18 chapters of Tehillim, comes David HaMelech and he says, Yu L'Ratzon Mifi L'Fanecha Adonai Tzuri Ve'Goali. Says the Gemara, is it in chapter 18? Do me a favor, take a Tehillim and check the end of chapter 18. Ask the Gemara, what are you talking about? Meaning like this, the Gemara is saying, after the 18 blessings of the Amidah, you're going to say Yu L'Ratzon. Why are you going to say Yu L'Ratzon? But that's what David HaMelech did. After 18 chapters of Tehillim, he said Yu L'Ratzon. Says the Gemara, it's not after 18, it's a 19. What are you talking about? You Tetavian. He says not 19. So he comes and he says, answers the Gemara. This is the Gemara. Ashrei ish velama rageshu goyim chada parshatai. The first 2 chapters of Tehillim is 1 chapter. Really, Be'emet, it was 1 chapter. That's the way it was. And then afterwards they went and they separated it. So therefore, says the Maharsha, at the beginning he's saying, it was Be'emet really one parasha, one Perek of Tehillim. And that's why they did the Amidah after 18. Because it was after number 18. Meaning our chapter 19 is really chapter 18. Because the first 2 chapters was 1 chapter. So if it really Be'emet, it was after 18. So he comes and he says, right, now obviously, right, it does make sense also because they added the Birkat HaMinim. So therefore, when they added the Birkat HaMinim, it's after the 19. So then Be'emet, they changed also the Pirkei Tehillim in order that it's going to be after 19 as well. Okay, and that's what it says. He says, Kishamlu Chazal Tanur Banan, right? Shimon HaPekoli Yistir Yucheh Brachol Lifnei Gamliel Yisad Yavneh. Klum Yesh Adam Sheyedol Leteken Birkat Tzadikim, right? Tzedokim. Amad Shimon HaGav Tikna. He came in the institute, meaning they added an extra bracha and Amidah. Our Amidah, even though the Ashkenazim, we call it Amidah, which just means standing. Ashkenazim call it Shmona Esrei. Shmona Esrei means 18. It's not 18 brachot anymore. It's 19. It's 19 blessings, not 18. Now that you have 19 blessings, it really be'emet the Perek of Tehillim becomes after the 19th. So that's why they come and they split up the Pirkei Tehillim, that now it's be'emet after the 19th one. But according to our cheshbon, doesn't matter whether it's going to, if you open up a Tehillim, chapter 51, yeah, Rabbi Yonah comes and he calls chapter 51 Mizmor Teshuva. The Mizmor of Teshuva. Why? The entire concept is talking about the Teshuva of David HaMelech for the sin of Bathsheba. Right? And he comes there and he says, Choneni Elohim kechastecha, kerov rachamecha mechefesh ha'ai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please give me the grace like your chesed. Of all your mercy, you're going to erase my sins. Herev kabeseni me'avoni, please wash out my sins. Umechatati, and purify me from my sins. Ki fesha'ai ani edab, as I know my sins. V'chatati negdi tamid, that my sins are always in front of me. Lecha levadecha chatati, I only sinned against you. V'ara b'necha asiti, I did bad in your eyes. Techateeni be'ezov etad, purify me and cleanse me. Right, like the hyssops. Wash me out, and you're going to make me all white. Haser panecha mechata'ai, close your eyes for my sins and erase all my sins. The entire parasha is based upon Teshuva. The entire parasha is all based upon Teshuva. So he comes out that he says the Parashat of the Teshuva of the Torah and the Parashat of Nitzavim, they're both number 51. Meaning, in the Torah, the Parasha that speaks about Teshuva is Parasha 51, which is Parashat Nitzavim. Because remember, Nitzavim Vayelech are together. And in the Tehillim, the chapter that speaks about Teshuva is 51. What is the number 51 coming to teach you? So he comes and he says like this. Listen to this. It's an incredible yesod. It's something incredible. And he says like this. He says, the inner meaning of this number is that really be'emet, you're opening up a new page. You're starting fresh. You're opening up a new page. He says, why? Because the number 50 is always like a complete world. It's always everything. How do we see that? For example, an Eved, you have a slave, a Jewish slave, right? When he becomes sold as a slave, he gets out on Shemitah, right? On the 7th year. What happens if he wants to stay in? So he becomes an Eved Ivri. He gets his ear pierced until when? Says until Yovel, right? Rashi says, Magid shechamishim, because it says va'avado leolam, he's going to serve him forever. What is forever? Until Yovel. Yovel is 50 years. That is forever. Parashat Be'alotecha, it says also, the Leviim, their service in the Bet HaMikdash was not like the army. The army service was always from ages 20 to 60. The Leviim service was 30 to 50. It says, Ubi ben chamishim shana, 50 years old, he's not going to serve. There the Yerushalmi says, there I'm not a biababred of papi. Rabbi Yoshua desichnim Hashem Reveli, bechol etzev yeh mutar, udvar svatayim l'ma'ach l'machzor. He comes and he says, right, do you know that that's why the tefillah, she was kitzra yamav shel Shaul. Do you know that without realizing it, Bat Chana, she came and she killed her own son. Without realizing it. He says, why? Right? He says, Shamra vayeshev sham ad olam. Chana prayed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, give me a son, and I promise you that he's going to be for you forever. Ad olam. So he says, one second, but the olam of a Levi is only 50 years old. As it says, 50 shana yeshu mitzvah avodah. So the Gemara says, because of that, he lived until 50. Meaning, she should have just said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just give me a child. How long is he going to live? Let him live to 100. The second that she used the terminology that he's going to be there forever, le'olam, a full world, the full world is 50 years. That is le'olam. And therefore, he died at the age of 50. Ask the Gemara, how many years did Shmuel HaNavi die? 52. 52, it's not 50. So ask the Yerushalmi, it's 52. So he says, no. The first 2 years was when she was nursing him. And since she was nursing him, it wasn't part of the count. But 50 years is an olam, is a world. And that's also what we talk about. How many sha'arei binaz are there? How many gates of wisdom do we always speak about? Right? And also how many gates of tum'ah are there? Everything is always, because it says, V'tachasreu me'at melokim. So Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't able to get to the 50th level of Nevuah, the 50th level of Binah, right? And the same with the Tumah. Bnei Yisrael, they were in Mitzrayim, they were the 49th level of Tumah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu to take them out before they get to the 50. Because once you get to the 50, once there's a concept of 50, it's complete, it's whole. There's nothing above that. You've done it. So it comes out, the entire concept then of the Yovel, that the Yovel is 50 years, is really Be'emet, 7 times 7. Because you have 7 times 7 is 49. And now the 50th year finishes the cycle. As it says, you're going to count 7 years of seven times, and then you're going to blow the shofar, you're going to sanctify the 50th year, because every single 7 is a group of shlemut. So why? Because it's 7. 7 is something complete. We filled the week of 7 days. So he comes and he says, right, and that's why they always say that number 8 is above nature. That's why you do Brit Milah on day 8. That's why Chanukah is 8 days. Everything which is above nature is 8. But the nature is 7. Everything's 7. So he comes and he says, according to that, right, now we actually understand, but here he's actually going to bring down whether it's going to be Shivat Yimei Bereshit, the 7 days of the world's creation, Shivat Yimei Binyan, right? We're talking about the 7 that you're always multiplying it in itself, and it's always going to be the same numbers, right? So he comes and he says, the Shnat HaChamishim is always the full, when you fill something. And that's the Ulamo of Yovel. Now, the other thing, 51 is already a new start. 51, you're starting a new beginning, because now it's the next cycle. So you're starting again. It's going to be opening up a new page. So the entire concept then of the Teshuva is that until now, even though we were so far away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the Rambam came and he said that the person was very, very, very far away, then the Teshuva is going to come and bring somebody close, that yesterday he was hated, and all of a sudden now he's loved, and he's called a Yedid. And that's the explanation, Hashivenu Hashem Elecha V'Nashuva, Hader Shiamenu Kekedem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring us back, as if to say that we're opening up a new page. Do you know this is very, very difficult, because the majority of people, when they get into a fight with someone, they don't go back to start a new page. They're not in a fight anymore. Meaning they could be the best friends, and all of a sudden they get into a fight, and they go from this to this. Even after doing teshuvah, and they both say sorry and everything that you want, maybe they'll come back like this. Some people even a little bit more, maybe like this. But to come back like this again is very, very difficult. The majority of people do not do that. Why? Because they already, as if to say that they're putting their defenses, right? They're already there. We ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashivenu Hashem Elecha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, bring us back to you. Chadesh Yamenu, make new our days, just like yesteryear, just like yesterday, Kekedim, like from the beginning. Ki'ilu, we never sinned. So that means we're asking from Hashem, open up a new page. And that's why the Perek of the Tehillim is going to be like that. That's what we're saying. We're asking that we should be Zocher, Mamash, to Teshuva Shlema. So it comes out, now we understand why the Torah is going to be 51, meaning the Parasha of Teshuva and the Torah is going to be Nitzavim, which is going to be 51. Now again, you could only say 51 if Nitzavim Vayeilech are together. And we understand also why the Perek of Tehillim of 51 is called the Perek of Tehillim of Teshuva, Mizmor Teshuva. So a Gaon, right, there was a rabbi of Elmaleh, we do know in his Sefer, right? He comes in the Bnei Yissaschar, he comes and he says in the Tefillot, what does it mean in Chag HaSukkot that we come and we say, Hoshana. We say, Hoshana. What is Hoshana? Right? And also the last day we call it Hoshana Rabbah. What is Hoshana Rabbah? The Kavanah is Hoshea Na. We ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to save us and to accept our screenings, right? On the 51 days from Rosh Chodesh Elul until Hoshana Rabbah. Because again, we say, right, Hoshana Rabbah is Kaf Aleph LeChodesh Tishri, and therefore we're asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, save us also on Hoshana Rabbah, which that is the end of the Chatimah. That is the end of everything. So look at the importance of what it is, the number 51, that you're going to have Hoshana, please save us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And because of the 51, it's because of the Teshuvah. We're coming, we're actually telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu because of the Teshuvah that we're doing. So now it comes out, Yeshua is actually, which is going to be an atonement, right? The salvation is also talking about a kapara, which comes only after Teshuvah Shlema, right? Because we know that, what is that order of the Amidah? We do God, right? We do Goel Yisrael, Refaenu, and that's going to be after Silicha. So he says, Veshav Verafalo, 1 second. First you should have Teshuvah, Hashivenu Avinu Torotecha, and then Refuah, because it says, Veshav Verafalo. So answers the Gemara, there it's not talking about of sicknesses, it's talking about the refuah of selicha. So that's why we have Hashivenu, which is going to be Hashivenu Avinu Torotecha, and then we have, right, Arotzeh B'Teshuva, and then afterwards Selicha. So right after the Teshuva comes the Selicha. So here the Marsha says, look at what the Rambam says in Shmone Prakim, Cholei HaNefesh U'Refuato is kemo Cholei HaGuf U'Refuato. Meaning when a person is sick with their neshama, it's exactly when they're sick with their body. Urfuah ne'enake ba'ikra, lav refuat haguf, ela refuat nefesh, sheyas slicha, we're talking about slicha. And that's why we made it, right, in that form. So he comes and he says, right, that's why the bracha of the chamishit is achzirem tshuva shalom alefanecha, and we say, Hashivenu Hashem alecha v'nashuva, which means if we already started doing the teshuvah is going to become shelema, because we want it. So Chazal come and they say, Rabbanan, they went and they called Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippurim. Rosh Hashanah is called Ori. Ori is my light. Right? Yom Kippur is called Yish'i, my salvation, Yeshua. So therefore, the Yeshua. So he comes and he says, and that's why the Sfat Emet comes and he says, that Kavu lomar Hashanot b'yamim ha'elu, v'divrei chachamim yidovon l'rmez b'chol et ha'yafeh b'ito. These are called Yemei Yeshua. And that's why we say, Odecha ki anitani, or Yamim Noraim. When we come and we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Odecha, we're going to say thank you to you because you answered it. We're talking about Yamim Noraim. During the Yamim Noraim, during the Seret Tshuva, you answered us. Yom HaKippurim is ve'ayinitem nafshotechem. Right? That we are going to come, we're going to afflict our bodies. And then we're going to have a salvation on the day of Sukkot. So he comes and he says, Yom HaKippurim is Yishi, which is the Ketz Mechila Uslicha V'Yisrael, Ki B'Yom Hazeh Yichapel Lechem. But that's Yom Yish'i. It's going to be the salvation. And that's why we're going to ask also during the time of the Selifot. He comes and he says, Ki al rachamecha rabim anachnu betuchim. Right? V'lishuatecha anachnu mitzupim. Right? What does that mean? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we are certain of your mercy. And therefore we know that we're looking forward for your salvation as well. So we come and we're going to ask Hosha'ana, which is basically accept our teshuvah. And that which is hinted in the number 51. And therefore we're going to be Zoche to Yeshua, which is the Selichan Chapara and the Gemara Chatima. Right? There's a pasuk that says in Yov, Mi ten tahor mitame lo echad. Right? What does that mean? Who's going to give from the pure, from the impure? It's not one. So they say in the Gaon HaKadosh of Pinchas Halevi Ish Horowitz. Right? He was the rabbi of Frankfurt the Main. Right? The Main, right? Which is basically the Bala Afla. Right? He comes and he says as follows. The word tameh is the gematria of 50. Tet is 9, mem is 40, aleph is 1, so 50. That's coming to teach you about the 50 share tum'ah. But it's murkevet me'aotiyot mem tet. Right? Amorot al mem tet share tum'ah, which is 49. Ma'u adayin yesh motzeh v'derech hazara. So how is the only way to get out of it, the 49 levels of the tum'ah? The aleph. Because the aleph is by itself. So he comes and he says, and that's the 50th one. The 50th gate is hinted. When noflim v'shokim b'tocho chalila, because once you fall into that aleph, that means you have memtet, you have tameh, memtet, and then you have the aleph. The memtet is already the 49 levels of tumah. The aleph is like separate. That's the 50th level of tumah. If you go into that aleph, there's no coming back. It's a point of no return. So he comes and he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he doesn't want that a person should die. So he always tries to help that we will never get to the 50th level. And that's why it says, Mi ten tahor mitameh. Who's going to give the purity that they won't fall in the tum'ah? It's not going to be echad, it's not going to be the aleph, which is one, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he's the one that's the aleph at the end of the word. Because that's what happened in Yetziat Mitzrayim. Mi ten tahor mitameh. Who's going to change the tahor from the tameh, that he's not going to fall in? Because the tameh, it's lo echad. It's not the 50th one. Because the 50th level, once we would have gotten in, we wouldn't have been able to get out. And according to this Yesod, the Khatam Sofer comes and he says, Aremes. Listen to this hint. Ashrechem Yisrael lifnei miatem et ta'arim. We sing this song all the time. It is a song of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva used to always say, Ashrechem Yisrael, fortunate is Yisrael. Lifnei miatem et ta'arim. Who are you purifying yourselves? Umi meta'er etchem. Who purifies you? Avichem Shabashamayim, your Father in heaven. He says, Tevat Mi is also 50. Mi metaher etchem. Mi atem metaharim. It's always me. Who's me? Mem is 40, Yod is 10. L'ramez al 50 sharet tumah. And therefore he comes and says, Rabbi Akiva, shelifne mi, klomar, as long as you haven't fallen into the 50th level, atem metaharim. Lifne mi, before the 50th level. Lifne mi, then atem metaharim. It's not in front of who are you purifying yourselves. Is that as long as you're before the me, as long as you're before the 50th level of tumah, atem metaharim, you could still purify yourselves. Because after that, you cannot fall, you cannot come, and you cannot purify yourselves. And then there's no tkuma. So then what? Metaher etchem avim avichem shebashamayim. You understand? He comes and he says now, umi leshigatem chamishim and tkuma. But then metaher etchem avichem shebashamayim. Only he's the only one that could come and take you back, right? Shetishku lelo derech hazara, right? And that's why it's also derech remez mi ten tahor mitameh lo echad ki ami shara chamishim shara tumah is giving the tahor mitameh. Just like the Balafla says, lo echad. So what's coming actually out is, right, that according to what we just mentioned, every single Jew that he already went to the Sharei Chamishim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take him out of the Chamishim, right? That's what he's saying. Umisham, right? L'shar Chamishim ve'echad kiviyachol u'shar Teshuva. He's going to take him out even of the 50th one. But it's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's what? Shar Teshuva. So he comes and he says, because the Shara Chamishim ve'echad meshulvim ze b'zeh, because they're attached, right? And he comes and he says they're attached because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's not going to let any Jew to actually fall to the 50th level. And therefore, if he is going to get to the 50th level, immediately brings him to the 51, right? Why? In order that we should never actually go to the 50th. That since the 50 and 51 are attached, so for immediately he's going to come and change it. He says here another remes. He says in 51, he says, how do we know? He says like this. He says, התחלה חדשה שתבואה משולב גם הוא מינון ונון א' ביחד. Why? Parashat Nitzavim is a 51st parasha in the Torah. Okay? But according to the Malach HaParashiyot Nitzavim Vayelech is one parasha. Right? Vehen lefi Malach HaParasha וזאת הברכה is not part of the parashiyot. Right? במאידך, לפי תירוצו של הרב חידה, Parashat Tetzaveh is not part of the parashiyot. There's one shita that Trumat Tetzaveh is one parasha. Because since Tetzaveh is the only parasha that Moshe Rabbeinu is not mentioned in the entire Torah, that's why it just says V'ata Tetzaveh. It's a continuation of Truma. It's like Truma v'Tetzaveh are one. So it comes out that then Parashat Nitzavim is number 50, and the Mizmor of Teshuva, which is number 51. If you're going to tell me that the first two chapters of Tehillim are one, so really be'emet, it's number 50 also as well. Just like the Parasha comes and he says that only after they came and they added in an extra Tefillah of Damidah, then they changed the chapters of the Tehillim. So therefore it comes out, right, that the Yom Gemara Chatima is the Yom Nun Aleph Yom Rosh Chodesh Elul, Shu Yom Lamed LeChodesh Av. But if you're going to count Aleph Elul, which is Rosh Chodesh Elul, Hoshana Rabbah is the 50th day. It's not the 51, right? So it's not 51. So what's going on? Meaning, if you're counting, we have 2 days of Rosh Chodesh Elul, but the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul is really Lamed Av. It's not Elul. So if you're going to count from Aleph of Elul, Elul only has 29 days, right? And then you're going to have the Kaf Aleph, so it's only the 50th day. So he comes and he says, so according to that, right, what's going on then? Because he says that the Rishonim come and they say that really Be'emeh Moshe Rabbeinu came up on Lamed Av or on Aleph Elul. Which one was it? So he says, Yesod of Reim is that there's a connection between the 50 and 51. Because you see that really Be'emet, it's either number 50 or 51. One more time. If you take our parashiyot, if you're going to take our parashiyot, there's 54. Okay, 54. Vezot bracha, let's say it's not counted. Why? It's not read on Shabbat. Vezot bracha is read on Simchat Torah. It's not read on Shabbat. So therefore, really, Be'emet there's 53. So Hazinu is going to be 53, right? Hazinu is going to be. It's going to be there's going to be 50. Sorry, Vezot bracha is not counted to the minyan, but really Be'emet there's 53 in total. That means even without the Vezot bracha, but Vezot bracha is 53. 52 is Hazinu. 51 is Vayeilech, and 50 is Nitzavim. And that's all we have. So it's 50, not 51. We explained it was 51 just because we said Nitzavim and Vayeilech are together. But really, Be'emet, if you go backwards, really Be'emet, it's number 50. But it's also 51. And the same thing with the Tehillim. Chapter 51 of Tehillim is according to what we have it, that it's separate, number 1 and 2, chapter 1 and 2. But if you add them together the way that it was at the beginning, so then it's chapter 50. So you see from here that there's a connection between number 50 and number 51. And the reason why is like who always wanted to make that connection in order that if a person would chas v'shalom almost start falling into the 50th of Sharet Tumah, immediately he would bring him to Sharet Teshuva, which is going to be 51. Opening up a new page. And that's why this Shabbat is called, right, the concept of the Parasha that we're reading, Parashat Teshuva, and the Perek of Tehillim is chapter 51 that we're reading, because all again, one more time, the number 50 and 51 are always going to be connected, and it's hinting to us, open up a new page. No matter what happened in the past year, doesn't matter. Flip the page and start a new daf. That is the message, right, that we're supposed to come, right, and that we're supposed to actually be sharing with ourselves and internalizing such dimensions.